Hello everyone. So this is an example that accompanies lecture 2. That's an introduction to Excel and also to Python. This particular example is Excel, and I'm going to go through these worksheets here, this workbook I've made in Excel, and highlight a couple features. Hopefully you've done some of this on your own, and if you're watching this is a supplement or to answer some questions that you've got. But I highly encourage you to go through this worksheet by yourself and practice these things, because that'll help you learn a lot better. So this is an Excel workbook. An Excel workbook is made up of worksheets. You can get to the different worksheets by clicking on these tabs down here at the bottom. You can make new sheets by clicking on this plus sign here. That'll give you a new sheet, and you can delete those sheets as well. Each worksheet has a name. The name of this worksheet is Basics, and each cell of the worksheet is sort of a calculator, right? So if I want to put in here 5 plus 5, oh, I need to turn on my number lock. 5, where'd it go? 5 plus 5. I don't know why that's not working. 5 plus 5. There we go. That'll give me 10. Okay, I need an equal sign to evaluate a formula in Excel. Cells can reference other cells. So if I go back and make this 5 plus 5 again, I can come down to this cell and say equals R4. I think that's R4. Maybe that's R3. Looks like R3. And C equals R3. And now this cell is referenced to that cell. So cells can contain simple numbers instead of formulas. They can contain text, so I can type my name here, or I can say BYU. If I want to for sure indicate that it's text, I put a little single quote before it, an apostrophe. Okay, that will make sure that it's text. If I want the 5 to be text, I put apostrophe 5. Now it's 5 text instead of 5 number. Okay, and I can format cells into a table. So if I wanted to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then let's say this was that times 2, so I'm doing some formulas. I can copy and paste that down the row here. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And I can formulate this. If I wanted to say column 1, column 2, I could now come along here and make this into a table. And I'll talk about formatting in another tab, but that's the basic idea. So a spreadsheet is basically a really big table with little calculators that can reference each other in every cell. There are other elements I can add. We'll talk more about these later in the course. I can add charts or plots. So if I come up along here in the ribbon, I can insert a chart. Okay, and again we'll do that later, but so I can insert charts, and I can insert text boxes. So I always forget, oh, there they are right there. So if I come to insert text box, I can come drag this here, okay, and I can type this is another text box. Alright, and text boxes are nice if you would like to document what's going on in the spreadsheet. These are text boxes. You can do formatting, you can change the font, you can do some nice things in text boxes. Finally, you come over here. If you come over and click on the File tab, you can save. So if I want to save this spreadsheet, I can save it into a folder. I'm calling this example Intro to Excel. I can say this, edited. Perhaps I want to do that. Okay. I can open if I want to open a previous cell, so I can open the unedited version where I didn't have anything in there. I'm going to close that guy out, go back to my edited version, and you should probably take a few minutes and just, if you haven't before, click through all these tabs and look at what's in the menu and play around with some of these items. Okay, so that's basics. Moving around, so as you've probably seen me do, I can move my mouse around and click at will. If I double click, it gives me a cursor to begin typing. I can also use my arrow keys to move around. Alright, and I can click and hold, and that will highlight multiple cells, or I can click the shift and move my arrow keys around, and that will also highlight. I can come, let's see, I think I said all that. If I would like to go all the way to the bottom, well, I think that's for copy and paste. So, so you can, select these guys. Okay, you can select these two. This is sort of practice for this select. If I want to do a region here, and then I want to do another region that's not connected, I press Control. So if I press, I can do click and Shift. And if I press Shift, it's now going to highlight that entire region. So Shift assumes it's connected. But if I want to highlight a bunch of cells that aren't connected, I can press Control rather, and that allows me to click on these guys. Okay. If I move my arrow keys, though, that breaks it. So that I just need to do with the mouse when I'm holding the Control. Okay. There's some other things here that you can kind of play around with. Play around with pressing Shift and Control. Turns out that if I use the arrow keys, pressing Control moves me to the end of my data. So if I want to highlight all the way to the bottom of that long list of 100, I click Shift and that starts to move me, but I can press now Shift and Control, press the down arrow, and I go down to the bottom of the list. And so it will also skip over blank cells and go to the next one. So if I press Control and the right arrow, I hop over to 1.2. I press it again, I hop over to 3. And if I press it again, I'm going to shoot all the way to the end of the spreadsheet here. And if I press Control and the left arrow, I go back. Okay, so play around with highlighting and shift and Control. Okay, Tab also will move me to the right, and Enter will move me down. So if I type, some junk, I press Enter. Some more junk, I press Enter. That does that. If I press some junk and I press Tab, it will take me to the right. Okay. So copy and paste is really valuable. So you can take data here and press Control-C, or you can also come up, let's see, I'm trying to remember where it is. I only do Control-C so often that I can't remember where. Oh, here it is. Copy. Right there. Copy. Okay, and then I come down here and I press Paste or Control-V, so click Paste. Okay, and the copy and paste in Excel is pretty smart. So it doesn't always just copy the numbers. It will also copy formulas, and it has some useful things. So I can copy the 1 here, 1, 1, 1. All right, so this is just copying the 1 down. But if instead of doing that, I take this corner here and drag, that will give me copy and paste filling down as well. Now notice that here I had started out with just a blank 1. Okay, but if I have 1.1, 1.2 and I highlight the two of them and then I start to drag, it knows that it guesses that I want to count up, and it will count up. And here I'll do 1, 3, and it will start counting every other one. All right, and so that drag function. So again, how do I do that? Instead of Control-C, Control-V, I just grab that little box down in the corner, the little filled box right there, and pull down. Okay. In addition, if I have columns like this where there's something all the way to the bottom, I can just double click on that little box and it will fill down automatically to the end of the bottom piece. So I can highlight these two guys, double click, fill, and that one will fill all the way down there. I do Control up to the top, and the same thing here, highlight those two, double click down, that fills all the way to the bottom. Okay, notice that when I copied and pasted here, it didn't just take the numbers, it also took the formatting. All right, you can copy and then you can come over here to paste, and it has special values, and I can just copy. I can do a regular paste, I can copy just the formulas. I can copy the formulas and the number formatting. There's all sorts of things I can do. Oftentimes, if you want just the values, you do this guy, paste values here with a V, and that will paste the values without taking the formatting. That's a pretty useful thing. Sometimes, instead of doing that, you want to copy just the numbers of some formula. So suppose I had this. Suppose I'll come up here and I'll say I want to make this column multiplied by 2. So I'm going to copy, paste. Hey, I'm just going to fill that down. I'll double click, fill that all the way down. But if I click here, look, I have the formula. But suppose I don't want to copy the formula. Suppose I just want to copy the numbers. I can do Control C and then come over here. I do paste, come down for me, paste just the values. It pastes the values, and when I click here, this has a 6. It doesn't have a formula. Okay. Whereas if I copy and paste the formulas instead, if I just do a regular copy paste, so I'll highlight that again, copy and paste right here, now it's giving me a bunch of zeros. Because what it's done is it's used a relative reference to say, oh, I want to look at the guy right next to me, all right, and multiply that by 2, and now that's giving me a bunch of zeros. All right, let's see some other things that we want to do. You might want to just move a cell around. So if you kind of notice, if I move to the edge of the box, I get this arrow sort of, double-edged arrow in both directions, up and down, and I can use that to just drag the cell around. Now notice when I did that, it kept the same reference here. It says I'm going to look at this same reference, and so it's still giving me the same value. I could just as easily have dragged this piece over here like that. Let me drag it to a different spot. Okay, and notice that when I did that, this kept its reference to the one I dragged. Okay, so there's some things that Excel will do, and you need to kind of play around with dragging and copying and filling, etc., to be able to understand what's going on, okay? Because it's assuming certain things when you do this. A couple other things to look at. You can do different kinds of delete and different kinds of insertion, okay? So I can select a bunch of values here. Let me select these pieces here. I did that by clicking and then shift and clicking. And I can clear the contents. So that deletes the values in here. Okay, the same way that I did by right-clicking and clicking clear the contents, I can get if I just press the delete key. That also will clear the contents. However, perhaps I want to remove these entirely from the spreadsheet altogether. To do that, instead, I will click delete. When I click delete, it says, oh, you want to delete these cells. Where should I fill them in? I can't just have a blank table here with nothing in there. What should I do? And I can pick to delete, say, the entire row or column, or to delete these and shift these cells up, or to shift them left. Okay, so if I say shift left, notice that shifted all those pieces over, all right? And now I've got this nice messy table that I don't really want to mess with, okay? In addition, I could highlight an entire row and click delete, and it'll delete the whole, an entire column. It'll delete the entire column. Or I could do the same thing coming over here to a row. I can click delete, and it'll delete the row. All right? So, or if I didn't want to delete, I can insert column, and I can also right-click on this and insert a row. Okay. So that's some moving around, some orientation. Let's look a little bit at formatting. You can adjust the cell sizes by hovering your mouse over the borders of the cells and dragging to change the width. You can do the same thing with the rows by dragging. You can also right-click on a column and click column width, and then you can specify the width. I don't remember what units it's in. This might be in pixels, but I don't remember the units off the top of my head. Sorry about that. So suppose I want to make that 15 instead. So I click 15, hit enter, and now that widens it to 15. I come over to the row height. Suppose I want this row to be different. I can right click and now I click row height, and this one is obviously in a different set of units because 15 is big here, but this one says it's 15.75. That's not that big there. So suppose I make that one 10. Okay. Oh, I keep forgetting my number pad's not working. I press 10 and that shrinks that piece. Okay. Note that I need to change the entire size of or all of the rows. I can't just take this one guy. If I want to increase or decrease that, I can't do that. I have to leave them all the same. I can do I'm going to undo that because that's kind of obnoxious, those last two moves. All right, it's kind of nice when you have your rows and columns similarly similarly sized. So I can do some other things. I can take these cells, I can make them italic by coming up here and clicking on the italic button, or I can hit Control I. That will italicize those numbers. So there's that one's italic. I can make them bold by having Control B or by clicking on the bold button up here. You can do all sorts of things with colors. So there are background fills. So if you click on this little paint can, you can fill the background with a color. You can change the text color by clicking on this guy. Suppose I want the text color to be red. And you can play around with the borders. So you come up here, you can give it borders on the outside, you can have thick borders, all sorts of things to change the borders. All right. Sometimes you would like to have something like this guy where you have a title that spans multiple columns or multiple rows. In order to do that, you need to merge those cells together. And this is how you can have something that is a different size cell, without having individual cells that are different sizes, right? You just merge a bunch of them together. So to merge, what you do, let me just show you how the merge works. Let me do merge, test, merge, test. So there's a couple different ways to do that. One way, you highlight the two cells and you can, it's not in the right click, but you can come up here and you click merge and center. All right, you click merge and center. Now what happens is it's going to get a little grumpy at me. It says merging only keeps the upper left value, so it's only going to keep the left one and not the right one. I click OK, and it deleted that other cell. So be careful with that. I can show that by making this merge test 1. Let's make this one merge test 2. Okay, and take that piece, merge and center. Yep, warning me. Yep, merge test 1. Okay. It won't give me that error if I go to merge and I only have the one piece. All right. So it merges and centers, but if you don't want it center, you can go back and change it to be right or left justified as your interest. We talked about copy and paste last time, and another thing that's pretty valuable is suppose I put a number in here. Suppose I put 8.0. All right, but this just gives me an 8. I can change the number formatting by using this part of the ribbon, or I can also right click and click Format Cells. All right, and there's a number formatting right here. So I'll show you that that gives you the same thing. If you click this little box in the corner, it brings up that same menu. All right, so if I click the number, all right, I can say I want it to be dollars, $8. That'll give me a dollar sign. I want it to be in percent. That's going to be 800%. I want to have scientific notation where I have 8 times 10 to the 0. I can make it text. I can make it a date, etc. So let's make it a number, and I want 3 decimal places. And click OK. Now it will show 8.000. Maybe you're like me and you find that a little bit annoying. So they have a way to increase or decrease the decimals. So if you wanted to increase the number of decimal points, you can do a click on this guy, decrease this guy. If you want to do it quick, how to format the number, you click on, if you want to make it dollars, you can click there. You can click percentage right there. All right, and this little drop-down menu makes it easy to switch back and forth to things like that. Maybe you've seen numbers that look like this before. So say I try and add, it's doing something nice to me. say I try and make my number too long to fit. It's going to give me a bunch of these pound signs. So you might sometimes just see a bunch of pound signs and go, hey, what's happening? So what's happening is your number is too big to view, so you can either increase the width of that cell, or oftentimes that's due to too many decimal points, and you can decrease the number of decimal points that you're showing. Finally, this is talking about the auto sum button. I kind of hate the auto sum button, but if I have 5, 6, 7, highlight them, I can click auto sum, and it'll at the bottom enter a summation formula of the things that I highlighted. Okay, that's pretty fancy, so I guess it's not so bad. Maybe hate was too strong a word. And then this is also reminding us that I can put in things as text. So if I want to do equals 5 plus 6, that's going to evaluate as a formula. But remember that I can make anything text by putting an apostrophe in front of it. If I put an apostrophe, now it will actually just print the formula 5 plus 6. All right, fourth worksheet. This sheet is talking about how to do some calculations and how to define variables, and doing a little bit on unit conversions. We'll talk about unit conversions next time, so I'll skip that here. The first thing that this sheet's imploring you to do is to make your sheets readable. It's very easy to make an Excel sheet that nobody can follow or understand what's going on. And things that you can do to help yourself out are by making text boxes, importing some pictures of the formulas that you care about from other places, typing up the problem, doing some nice formatting, using bold judiciously, giving yourself some white space, indenting, lining things up so that they're in the same spots, writing down what the units are, etc. Okay, so what this is asking you to do is go through and I'll let you do this on your own time, but find the volume of a cylinder given that the diameter is 1.5 meters and the height is 4 meters. Okay, so you could probably just type that in one cell, but instead of typing it in one cell, you could follow the example here and say type given, given, we'll try that one more time, given, and you would say the diameter is 1.5 meters, and the height is 4 meters. Okay, and now you could take this and format it a bit, give yourself some borders, make these guys bold, all right, and then you say, well, the formula, what is the formula for the volume of a cylinder? The formula is that the volume is pi times diameter squared over 4, which is the area of a circle, times the height, so pi d squared over 4 times h. You might look up a way to import that formula here. All right. Now what I want to do is find the volume. It looks like I'm just doing this for us. The volume is going to equal pi, which is a formula actually, so a function. We'll talk about that later. You got to give it the parentheses, times the diameter squared. So squared, you use the little caret symbol, squared divided by 4 multiplied by the height. And there you go. There's our volume of a cylinder with the given diameter. All right. Sometimes it's convenient to instead of using the cell reference address of say Q15 and Q16, it's convenient to give these cells a name. So instead of this here, we might want to give it a name Q15. So let's come over here. I can click on this cell Q15, and I come over here and note where it has Q15. I can give a name. Let's call it diam. Okay, for diameter. Notice now it changes, and when I come down here, instead of putting Q15, I can put diam, and notice when I did that, it lit that up in blue because it knows what that name is, and now this is the diameter variable. Okay. Note that I can't name things that could be confused with cells. Okay. So I can't name this guy D. It won't like that. If I just want to do D, it's gonna, well, maybe it did let me do D, but I can't. That's really bad if it lets me do D. Usually it doesn't like things like that. Let's see if that one works. Typically it freaks out if I have things like D. Oh man, it works. But typically it does not like to use single things like that because they can refer to things like columns. So I've found errors with that. So I highly recommend you don't name it just a single letter like that. If you want to have it as a single letter, give it D and an underscore. All right, that usually it doesn't mind, and it's totally undermining me. Let's say D underscore. Is that going to work? D underscore. That one's working. Okay, so D underscore is oftentimes better than D. You notice I clicked here. You can look at these different variables. I'm trying to remember where the editor for the variables are. Let's see if we can find it real quick. Insert page. Oh, here's a good place. If I want to insert the equation while I'm here, I can insert an equation. Suppose I want to insert the area of a circle. Now I've got the area. I could come edit this. All right, make it larger, 20, if I want to do my volume formula. I'm skipping around here. Volume pi d squared divided by, let's see, I don't know if it'll let me do, no, I have to play with, anyway, you could play around and mess with that formula, but that's a neat way to insert formulas using this under the Insert tab. Let's see, the Name Manager. Oh, here it tells me where it is. Formula tab, Name Manager, right there. That's what it calls that variable manager. And look, here I've got D underscore, diam, okay. It's named all those guys. And if I want to get rid of that, I can just delete those names. Yep, delete that one, etc. And now, if I come look here, it's freaking out because it doesn't know what D underscore is, and I have to give it Q15 again. Okay, so there's a little bit about variable names and the name manager, which is a useful little trick. Okay, oh, and I didn't talk about doing calculations. Let's just review that really quick. Obviously I can do addition with the plus sign. I can do subtraction with the minus sign. Multiplication is with the star symbol, so 5 star 2, which is shift 8. And I said I can do powers with the caret symbol, which is shift 6. So there we go, to the 4th. Be careful of order of operations. So if I want to do 2 times 3, or let me do 2 plus 3 divided by 4, okay, it's going to do 3 divided by 4 first. So if what I wanted was 2 3/4, that's okay. But if I wanted 5/4, I need to put a parentheses around the 2 plus 3 to get 5/4. Oftentimes it's good to be a little careful about your order of operations because it can be very confusing to follow complicated formulas. So if you wanted to do 2 3/4, you can go ahead and throw some parentheses around there anyway to help clarify it for someone else or you later that are trying to read. Okay, so we might come along here and finish this guy, volume. This should be meters cubed, which we get when I had a squared and meters there. Okay, sorry for skipping around a little bit here. I'm just kind of going with a little bit of stream of consciousness. Okay, the last one is for some more work on formulas. And the most important thing here that I want to highlight is this guy here, which is locking cells. So this says, let's compute the area of a circle for the given diameter. So here's a whole length of diameters, and this is giving me heights. So I think what this is this is example 2. So this one here, we can come and say, I want the area of a circle, and this is my diameter, so this is going to be pi times d squared over 4. And so let's use the value of pi defined here. So I do pi multiplied by d squared divided by 4. Okay, great. So let me copy and paste. Copy, 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 copy. And if you notice, I have a problem. This is now 0, 0, 0. Well, certainly my area isn't 0 for that diameter, that diameter, that diameter. So I look what happened. And on this piece, the one I typed, I have pi, which is the bluish one, and d squared over 4, just as I expected. But if I click on this formula and look at what's going on, everything moved down. But I wanted it to stay the same. I wanted it to focus on this only. So what I'm going to do is come up here, and I want to lock this reference so it doesn't move. I do that by pressing F4. F4 puts dollar signs in front of the I and in front of the 5. Okay? And now when I do copy and paste, notice what happens here. Now I5 stayed the same. It locked it from moving to a copy and paste. So I copy and paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And now if I come down here and look at this piece, it's moving in the diameter, but it's not moving away from the pi. Okay, so I can take that one and fill it down. All right, so there's a little bit of subtlety to the fact that there's a dollar sign in front of the I and the 5, and we see that in example 2, where I'm trying to calculate the volume of a cylinder. So again, I'm going to do pi, by clicking on that piece, times d squared divided by 4 multiplied by the height. Okay? So that works fine. That works great right there. But remember, I'm going to copy and paste below, and I get an issue. What happened? Well, everything shifted down one. I want this one to stay the same up here. Okay? So I'll come and press F4, and I'll come over here to the height and press F4. Okay? Now let me try that. Boom, boom, and I'll double click and let it fill all the way down. And lo and behold, that one works just great. Okay? But now let's say I take this, highlight it, copy, and paste over to this height in column P here. Now these ones are wrong because I want it to actually have this height. Okay? I don't want to have it relate to this 4.4. So in order to get rid of that, what I want it to do is I want it to preserve the 5. I want it to keep row 5 here, but I don't want to keep column O. So to do that, what I do is in my formula, I don't want the dollar sign in front of the O. I only want to lock the row 5. Okay? So I can do that by just simply deleting that dollar sign, or I can press F4 again. And F4, if I keep pressing it, it cycles through where the dollar signs are going. So I said I want to keep the 5 the same, but let the O change. So now I do that. And when I copy, let me fill that one down, double clicking. Now I'll copy and paste over to the right, and notice now it's let it move over to P5. Okay? So if I had instead kept the dollar sign on the O instead of the 5, now watch what happens. When I copy down, it gets the wrong answer, because if I pick down here, it's moved down 9. Okay? It's moved down the rows, keeping in the same column. So just the way I always remember it is the dollar sign is in front of the thing you want to lock. Okay, so in this case, I want to lock the 5, not the O. So now I'll go back and fix it. Double click there, copy, paste, and I can drag this guy to the right, and it's doing some good stuff. Okay, so now it's using that height. Oh, but look what I did wrong there. I forgot to do that. Okay, so now when I dragged it to the right, maybe you noticed this earlier, this piece is moving. So I actually want to keep the diameter also fixed. So I wasn't paying attention to that. So the diameter is here in N6. That's the one that I want to use my F4. I want to keep N the same. I want to keep it in this column. I don't want it to move to the right. So let me copy and paste that one down. That one's all good. But copy, paste into P. Now if I copy and paste into P, now it's kept that one the same. Okay? So hopefully I didn't lose anybody there. I can copy that guy and drag it to the right. You can see it changed. Okay? And now I get what I expect there. All right? So that's a little bit of practice with locking cells. Hopefully I didn't lose you, but you definitely should practice that for yourself and play around and see what happens when you do that. Okay, I think that's all I have for you on Excel basics, copy, paste, etc. I hope that helps and gives you a little bit of practice. Have a good one.